Okay, so we've got quite a bunch of the Nigeria's latest GDP numbers for third quarter 2019 in our hands. This is the breaking news. If you're already on the news wire as we speak right now, welcome our viewers here in Nigeria and around the world. It's a big economic day today for Nigeria. I am boosting them. Let's get the show started. Nigeria's GDP for third quarter came in healthier than the second quarter reading of 1.94%, even though that's revised to 2.12%. Third quarter GDP printing 2.28% according to data released within the last hour by the Statistics Office. We'll show you the numbers in a few seconds. But a few sectors also were responsible for that. Agriculture was up, manufacturing is in the green, telecoms and information services was up, services sector was a little bit sluggish, 1.87%. Agri GDP was up 2.28%, reading the same as the broader GDP. And construction sector grew 2.37% thanks to Buhari's road, rates, and bridges construction. All of that's coming to you within the hour. We've got about four individuals speaking to us on these GDP numbers, breaking it down. But look at the numbers there. Bring that back very quickly. Just give everybody the headline reading. The nominal GDP for the third quarter in Naira terms, when we say the GDP grew 2.28%, which is the bold print at the center of the TV screen. The bottom left is what you're seeing, 37.81 trillion Naira. That's the nominal GDP for the third quarter. At the far right, you find 18.49 trillion Naira. That's the real GDP in Naira terms. That's the Naira total, the total Naira value of Nigeria's productive efforts and activities in the month of July, August, and September 2019. But how did we get these GDP numbers? What are some of the headline stories that we got in the period under review? Let's show you a bit of a look back now. Where did the road we traveled in the third quarter? It was the period, the quarter that President Buhari's new cabinet was inaugurated and the sharing of portfolio to those members of the new cabinet. That's one big story in the third quarter. Then we had the land borders closure to curb smuggling, to reining insecurity, flow of illegal small armed weapons coming into the country. That was another big story in the third quarter under review. Then we had the spate of violent criminal enterprise of kidnappings, abductions, highway robberies, and all of that. All that, we had a bit of that also in the period under review. Then we have the central bank on the monetary side going, what even Mango for Renaissance Capital described as unorthodox and more interventionist model, which went into the fore in the third quarter by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Also, what does that mean? We have the central bank raising LDR, that is loan to deposit ratio, to 60% in the third quarter under review. Within the same space, the regulator also hiked the rate again to 65% with a fresh deadline of December 31st, 2019. 12 banks were penalized $1.3 billion for failure to meet the first threshold of loan-to-deposit ratio of 60%. Some of them got a bit of refund. That's part of the headline stories for us in the third quarter. Then you have the headline inflation. The uptrend started within the quarter under review. Second quarter GDP, 1.94%. Monetary policy rate held at 13.5% at the July monetary policy central bank meeting. Then, of course, you had the biggest scam of the year, $9.6 billion P&ID oil and gas deal blew open. Nigeria moved in quickly to get an injunction against that judgment against the country at a UK court, and that is still in the news as we now effectively in the final quarter of the year. So giving you a bit of a background to the third quarter under review, a mixed bag of some good, some not so good news as we had it in the period under review. Let's have the first word And now we have a lot more discussion within the hour. The entire programming today is devoted to the third quarter GDP numbers. Bring in Bismarck Rwani, who is a member of the Economic Advisory Council of President Buhari and the CEO at Financial Derivatives Company, is raising the curtain on the conversation with us this morning. Mr. Rwani, thank you very much. This is as hot as it can get off the press. What's your first impression about the numbers?
Let's say Nigeria dodged the bullet. Coming in at 2.28, what we needed was 2.2 to bring our average for the year to about 2.1, which is the forecast for most analysts. Coming in at 2.28 is good news in the sense that we dodged the bullet. But we're not the only ones. Japan, Germany also dodged the bullet. In other words, we are not on the path towards recession. The recovery path seems steady. But there's a big job ahead. I think if you look at it, August 27 was when the border was closed. And so let us look at the sectors that actually grew faster. We looked at construction. We are seeing manufacturing. We are seeing agric, these are very important. These are job elastic and interest rate sensitive sectors. So this is positive. It means that the policies are beginning to have some medium-term effect. But then when you look at the sectors that were slowing and contracting, trade is contracting. Why is trade contracting? Because they are the first victims of the border closure, and it takes time for them to adjust. But again, the border closure is a short-term palliative. It's not going to, it doesn't solve much. This is a world of free trade, and therefore you've got to look beyond that. The border closure only dealt with partly on the smuggling and partly the currency misalignment. In all of this, don't forget something has happened. Inflation has increased. Inflation has increased 2 months consecutively after 3 months of moderation. So whilst on one hand, we are getting growth, which is very positive, we are getting inflation on the other hand. So when you look at employment, output, and prices, which is the Keynesian model of looking at things, on prices we are down, on output we are up, on employment we are nowhere. So this is the stark reality. We have to deal with this. But all in all, I think this will be a good day in the policy-making environment. People will be quite happy with this.
Yes, Mr. Rwani, thank you very much. As we begin to drill down on the positive reading, the positive side of these numbers, and I'm sure it came in about an hour ago, and I'm sure we're still going to have today, tomorrow, and all of that to drill down. Agriculture grew from 1.79% in Q2 to 2.28%. If you look at manufacturing sector, which you also talked about, was a negative 0.13% in second quarter, but grew to 1.10%, one of the fastest growth we saw in the Q2. And then you find cement manufacturing from 1.58% to a whopping 6.78% growth. Then you have the food, beverage, and tobacco grew from 1.22% to 2.98%. So as you said, it looks like some of President Buhari's unconventional policies and all of that with the central bank seem to be hitting home a little bit, at least by 3 key numbers.
No, growth is a function of fiscal policy, not monetary policy. Monetary policy only complements it. So before we start celebrating too early, some of this growth, there has been increased activity in certain areas. There's also the planting season and part of the harvest season that comes in the third quarter. So I don't, cause and effect. We have to be careful before we draw conclusions that X is leading to Y. But the most important thing here is that activities are increasing, diversification is taking place, and the revenues from these companies. But if you look at Q3 results published by the companies, almost all the fast-moving consumer good companies suffered a decline in revenue. So one can see output increasing, but revenues are not increasing, which means that the companies are not able to pass on their excess duty and all the increase in taxes to the consumer. The consumer is also suffering from disposable income. Now in Q4, what is going to happen? In Q4, hopefully before the end of this month, we would we will have the minimum wage paid. We are part of the minimum wage paid last month. So with that and a boost in disposable income because of this, then we will see some of these advantages. Meanwhile, the VAT and others are not going to kick in till next year. So Q4 will be another quarter in which we will probably come in at about 2.3. And if we did that, then our annualized growth for the year will be about 2.1, 2.15. Having said that, if you look at about 9 African countries, Nigeria is one of the 5 that have grown. Of course, not grown as fast as Kenya and Ivory Coast and Ethiopia, but at least we're growing. South Africa had negative growth, so that's good. But if you look at the correlation between interest rate policy and growth, you find that of all the 9 countries, only 1 country increased interest rates. All others kept interest rates flat like Nigeria, which means that keeping the policy rate on hold while stimulating the economy with fiscal incentives can lead to some growth. But what kind of growth? The ERGP expects us to be the budget plan for 3.1, but we are coming in about 2.2. The ERGP says that we'll be at 7% next year. We are far, far below that. So what is it that we need to do to grow, to capture population growth? What do we need to grow? At what rate do we need to grow to get to full employment, all things being equal? We need to grow at about 6%. So, and that is, we are 33% of that range of 6%. So there's work to be done. So whilst we celebrate the fact that we dodged the bullet, we should also begin to get ourselves ready for some hard work.
Yes, we dodged the bullet, as you rightly said, but again, it looks like this is more like a boomerang. If you stand in one place, you get hit. So if it moves around, you need to keep dodging it, all of that, because the bullet never goes away, by the way. Anyway. Okay, so let's talk more about this this sectors that we believe we need jobs, and that's what it's all about. Who eats GDP, by the way? Folks want jobs, and they want money in their pocket, they want food on the table. So we talk about construction. And look at what we're spending. Going by what the finance minister says, we've done about 650 billion this year. So far, she's saying, she promises that will top 900 billion, at least by December the 31st. So look at construction. We look at how that goes into cement and other electrical. Then you go to manufacturing and agriculture. So if you squeeze these 3 sectors together, Mr. Rawani, how much more, how quickly do we think we need to do to rein in this 23% unemployment, and of course our population now looking with the GDP almost the same level?
You're right. You see, what has happened is that in the first quarter we are in election, second quarter we are in transition, and in the third quarter we had our cabinet. So the disbursement for the capital votes only took place in the third quarter. So you are beginning to see the effect, the delayed and the lag between all of that transition into when activity started is what has hit us on construction, agri, and manufacturing. But these are job elastic sectors, 1. 2, these are the sectors that are interest rate sensitive. 3, these are the sectors that benefited from the central bank intervention programs. So all put together, it means that if you continue doing what you're doing right now and incentivize the investors to bring in additional investment, you're not going to only have activity increase, you're going to have investment increase, you're going to have a multiplier effect, and you're going to get jobs. By the way, the unemployment figure you're talking about of 23% was in Q1 2018. The unemployment figure today, by my estimates, are likely going to be about 35. So it's much higher than you think about and than you're talking about right now, but we've got to do something about it. If this continues, we are going to begin to see unemployment come down as we begin to increase our investment, increase our activities, increase output, and then have a lead on prices. Well, having said that, we need some stability in the monetary policy sector in the fact that now we are beginning to see people shift their money from treasury bills, from interbank into other areas. This may not be a very good thing in the long run. So I'm optimistic that the central bank and the policymakers will take a look at this again and begin to make some amendments so that the marginal propensity to save can increase and the marginal propensity to consume will reduce.
Mr. Rewane, let's go to one sector that we spent a couple of years celebrating, which is the ICT telecommunication sector. And it looks like growth in this sector is beginning to stall a little bit, go by the latest numbers. Telecoms and information services, just 12.16% in Q3 from 11.34% in Q2. Then you look at the ICT sector, broadly speaking, just 9.88% from 9.01%. This is very sluggish. So what do you think is happening in the ICT sector? Are we hitting a bit of a, not yet a brick wall? Go ahead, Mr. Rewane, please.
No, ICT is growing rapidly. ICT, it's not by coincidence that Jack Ma of Alibaba came here. The guy from Twitter came here. Zuckerberg has been here. This is the ICT hub of Africa. And measuring output, historical output, is different from new investments. You look at what has happened, Netflix, Flutterwave, and all these other guys, there is massive investment in ICT. All we need to do in ICT to unlock this is to allow the telcos to go in, get their PSBs and have their payments, their banking licenses to participate in the payment and settlement space. If you did this, in addition to what you have, you are going to have a lot of growth. Then also we have to maintain a good relationship with the telcos. They are investing about $2 billion annually in CapEx. They can do much more. And don't forget that ICT is not just the growth of the ICT sector. It unlocks productivity. It takes away constraints and bottlenecks. And because of technology, other sectors are driven. Education is driven. Healthcare is driven. Petroleum is driven, transportation, agriculture, all of these sectors have a complete and almost total dependence on ICT for effectiveness and efficiency. So to optimize the use of our assets, we need ICT. To invest in ICT itself, and let me put it this way, the developing countries have 45% broadband penetration. Nigeria has only about 30% broadband penetration. We need to get up to that average. Because in the advanced economies, 80% of the people are connected to the internet all the time. So we are doing some great things, but we just have to do them better, faster, and smarter.
Mr. Rewane, I'm not too sure if you watched the Kemi Adetiba's movie, King of Boys. It was released in third quarter, one of the biggest box office movies. Oh, you watched that? Great. So, between Kemi Adetiba's movie and Burna Boy, whatever on radio and television, whatever so this is what our motion picture, sound recording, and music production GDP was from a contraction or a recession of 0.45% in Q3 2018 to a deeper recession of 2.37% in Q2, grew 1.03% in Q3. This, we say thank you to Kemi Adetiba, Burna Boy, and the other ones that are here on radio.
Yes, you're right. But don't forget, the motion picture, the entertainment business is also a lot dependent on the weather in Africa and in Nigeria. In July, in the quarter in question, we had massive rainfall, and that actually dampened a lot of the activity. But in-house, the movie, covered movies and all of those theaters, they did well. But if you add outdoor and indoor activity, which you will see in the Q4, because the weather is much better now, we are going to have a boom in this area. I can assure you. We haven't even scratched the surface as far as entertainment and the movie businesses in Nigeria.
We need to get Kemi Adetiba and others to produce more. Maybe King of Boys Part 2. That was a great movie. Finally, just one.
Absolutely.
We need your thoughts. Financial services sector still underwater, Mr. Rewane, as the numbers go. The financial services sector has contracted as we speak. So I'm just trying to lay holds on the number. Yes. We have about a minute to wrap this up. Financial institutions has been it's been a massive 3.52% down in Q2, but grew just 0.61% in Q3. And the financial and insurance sector is still contracting. What's your take?
Yes. No, basically this sector is a victim of two things: competition and haphazard regulation and guidelines. It's the guideline. Nobody knows what's going to happen next. So when there's uncertainty, you just stop, and people are not investing in this sector. So what I can say is that the policymakers have to take a look at it and make sure you incentivize them. Allow people to come and compete. Allow new investment in, but let there be a level playing field. Let there be some certainty. There's been too much instability. Today, this regulation, tomorrow, that regulation, this is retroactive, this is... So I think that sector is maturing prematurely, but then we need to allow for some stability in the policy and the guidelines. That's all I can say. It will grow again, but these are just early days in 2019. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Awane, thank you so much. Your first word on our latest GDP numbers out today. Thank you so much. I'm sure we have today, the rest of the weekend, and next week to continue to drill down on these numbers. Thank you very much for raising the curtain here on the show. Mr. Awane, a member of the Economic Advisory Council, President Buhari, and the CEO at Financial Derivatives Company. Let's take a break, everyone. The conversation continues after that.